Welcome to FinScale, a podcast created by Solen Niederkorn, shedding light on innovation in finance, banking, and insurance.
A pioneer in sustainability, how Clarity AI is transforming the financial sector. Ángel Agudo, VP of Product and Board Member at Clarity AI.
Definitely, this idea of mission-driven company has let us attract very interesting profiles because they really wanted to have an impact as we wanted when we started the company. So that is the essence. And the second one, which is a consequence of the first one, is the excellence calls excellence. No? So when you start creating that team with very top people, that attracts other people because they see a lot of interest in working in that environment with that type of people. So that is something that fortunately is positively growing as long as you grow the team.
For the past few years, I've closely observed the evolution of Clarity AI. This team, exceptionally strong in AI topics and boasting an ultra-strong academic background, has developed an intriguing offering for the financial sector, among others. Inviting Ángel to the podcast gave us a great chance to explore Clarity AI's unique offerings in more depth and to gain insight into the core values they champion through their platform. The DNA of this scale-up is fundamentally rooted in sustainability and transparency. As a result, we examined the models they've developed in detail, how their services have grown and adapted to meet European regulatory requirements, and discovered what sets their sustainability tech kit apart as the most comprehensive and granular option available in the market. We also discussed clients like Klarna and solutions for meeting the requirements of CRR, SFDR, and TCFD. It's no wonder Clarity AI has won so many awards. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ángel. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you on my podcast. It's been a while that I've been following Clarity AI and what you're building. For 4 years, I told you, so already a long time ago. So the objective for me is that we understand what you're building and the trajectory of the startups in this AI ecosystem and all the opportunities in the financial sector more particularly. But first question to you, could you please introduce yourself to our audience and go back a little bit to your academic background?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first thing, thank you very much for hosting and inviting us. Clarity AI as a company, but myself in particular, excited and super happy for being here. So let me start, as you said, introducing myself briefly. My name is Ángel Agudo. I am the Senior VP of Product at Clarity AI, and I was part of the founding team. So I started from the very beginning of the company with Rebecca Minghella, who is the CEO and original founder of the company. My background, so I'm an engineer, telecommunications engineer. I studied as well business administration and a PhD on innovation and economics. So I've always been kind of between these two sides of technology and business, economical side of that. Most of my career has been done in academia, both in Europe. I will fall in the Technical University of Madrid in Spain, but also I had the opportunity to spend some years collaborating with the MIT, quite related on topics about innovation and entrepreneurship. And I spent another year as well at Harvard working closer to the topic that we work on Clarity related to social impact.
Okay, and how did you meet Rebecca? And when did you join the company?
Yeah, so that's funny. So we both studied in the same university when we were studying engineering, but we didn't met at that time. I joined the university a couple of years later, but we had a very good close friend. So by the time that she started more factually working on the idea of starting with Clarity, maybe I can say a little bit about how Clarity started. So she started thinking about this back in 2011 when she was doing her MBA at HBS as well, where she started working with a couple of professors about how we could measure the real impact of companies. Quite typically, and this is weird saying now, but back in 2011, this was quite a novelty, especially the companies that were kind of worse for the environment and for the society had a lot of like side projects, foundations and actions kind of to clean their main activities. I don't want to say names, but maybe we can think about specific industries that had like a lot of advertisements in different places. And basically what they wanted to do is why, instead of analyzing what other companies are doing on the side, we focus on their core business and we try to understand what is the actual impact of their activities with the intention of how to be improved. Because, by the way, there are certain activities that the people keep consuming. So it's not more about like how can we stop that industry, because quite likely the demand is going to still be there, but how can we improve their products or their operations to do better. So that was kind of that work back in 2011. She had like very interesting challenges in the middle, joining very good companies and even started her first startup. But in 2016, she said, well, I think this is the moment to really start formally with the idea of Clarity AI. And so thanks to these close friends, he was kind of looking for someone from the academical side to be sure that what we were doing, and I can tell a little bit more later about how we were founding the vision and the mission of the company. So having an academic view to be sure that we started all these models and these measurements being science-based. So this is how we got introduced. It was at the very, very early stage of Clarity because nothing was done. And we started working together 2017. For some months, I was doing both, working from academia and starting with the idea of the company. Indeed, we had the option to hire several postdocs and professors from my university. But some months later, I definitely decided that I had to focus completely on Clarity and unfortunately leave the university.
Okay, so that was 6 years ago. And how did the value proposition evolve over the time? Because my impression when I started looking at your company a few years ago, my impression is that it was not so much focused on sustainability. And is it a good impression or is it wrong? And can you, elaborate a little bit on the value proposition and its evolution over the years?
For us, I believe we are pretty proud of that. We strongly believe that the vision of the company keeps exactly the same from the moment that we started. And it was based on a couple of things. One is that what we saw in the market was not good enough for the importance of the purpose of sustainable investment, but not only that, the importance of the usage of sustainability information into the decision-making process. Mm-hmm. Indeed, that is the reason because we chose this name, Clarity, because we really wanted to provide this to the market, clarity. It's very funny, but even still today, when you read articles and papers that talk about sustainable investment or how to use sustainability in general, lack of clarity is a pretty common term because this is what people complain. Yes. We don't really understand what this is about. We don't really understand where the data is coming from. Sometimes we don't even know what the data is because what we see is a list of ratings that are quite obscure. So it's very difficult to understand exactly what do they mean, what do they are based on, and so on. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of pillar one, ensuring that we could provide good transparency and visibility to use this type of information and insights, but not only in finance, but across the whole society. So as of now, we have a list of products that serve the needs of, on one side, of course, financial institutions, but as well end consumers. So basically being able to incorporate this information in applications like e-commerce, so you can understand what is the best or worst company based on their sustainability dimensions when you purchase something, or retail banking, so you have visibility as well across all your payments, how your footprint looks like based on the type of products and companies that you are buying from.
And which vertical did you choose in the beginning? Did you start investigating? Who were your first clients? Was it rather e-commerce, banks, asset owners, asset managers?
We started with the financial institutions for a couple of reasons. One, because even from this mission-driven approach, the financial industry is still 2-3 times bigger than the actual economy. So basically, we had the capability, even due to the concentration of the market, of influencing several players and having a huge impact in what we wanted to do, which was like the introduction of this type of dimensions into the decision-making process. Mm-hmm. And second, because Indeed, our second pillar is the idea of technology. So what we saw that the industry was based on was above all like a bunch of analysts that were creating static long reports that they were very difficult to digest in the end for the end users. So we wanted to leverage technology with different purposes. One of those was pretty focused on ensuring that people was really able to use this to make decisions, but also to improve in different dimensions. We will talk about it, I guess. So the coverage, the quality of the data, the capacity to ingest this into other workflows, and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. We really thought that the usage of technology was going to make a difference about how to solve this problem, basically.
Mm-hmm. If we talk about technology and AI in particular, because you're really, pioneers in that area particularly, can you please describe very concretely for us, how do you use artificial intelligence and machine learning, and what is the output that is produced out of that technology?
Especially these days, I like to say that we were doing ESG when nobody was doing ESG, and we were doing AI when nobody was doing AI back in 2016, 2017. But that is really true, right? So we started using AI because, as I said, is one of the pillars of our vision, right? We thought that this could be solved better thanks to technology. Let me maybe mention like the main buckets, and I can deep dive a little bit on each of them about how we use AI. Mm-hmm. One is on the incorporation of information. So basically leveraging technologies to capture more data, more metrics about more companies. So anything that revolves about the coverage that we can offer to our clients, which is kind of an insurance for them to be sure that if they partner with Clarity, they can be safe across time, because anything new we're going to be able to capture really quickly, mm-hmm. and with the right coverage, so they can make their right decisions based on their investable universes. Mm-hmm. So that is one about like the idea of capturing data. The second one is about the quality of the data. So there is a lot of information, a lot of metrics. There are still a lot of nuances about the methodologies, the lack of standardization, and so on. So AI, again, helps us, especially certain machine learning models, helps us to identify potential issues with the data so we can correct that information in advance at a scale as well. So not focus only on eventually humans in the process, but leveraging algorithms and models due to that. The third bucket is about insights. So having the capability of extracting the right information out of the data. We always say that data might be a lot, but the importance here is how you can extract the insights that help you in your decision-making process. This started in the industry with a too much simplification from our perspective, which were the ratings. So above all, people thought that with one simple rating, they could make decisions. We believe the problem is much more complex than one just simple rating. That's so true. We use AI to facilitate that experience to the user, moving from a lot of data to a bunch of insights that help you to make decisions, but with a certain level of accuracy and granularity to be sure that you cover everything. Mm-hmm. And maybe the fourth and last bucket is related to content generation, which has accelerated quite a lot, especially lately with generative AI, which is the capacity to simplify even more the work of the users, creating the right explanations, reportings, briefings for certain different stakeholders, where the information is automatically created. So it's not only based on all the pieces that I've described before, but even the final outcome and output that you produce is automatically done, saving you, of course, a lot of time, but also serving you to do your work much faster and simpler, because these topics are complex, so you might not have all the right context in order to produce those outcomes.
So you mentioned this four-step approach. There is something that is very sensitive right now is the bias. And so what way do you ensure that your AI-driven approach is unbiased and scientifically grounded? And second question, how do you provide transparency to your clients? Because they will require, and particularly in with all the AI Act, for instance, and all the regulation that comes in force in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing about like being unbiased and being sure that the information is right. We always say that traditionally the reporting and analysis has been done by analysts. And there was like a huge dependency on humans about the insights and decisions that they were making, because that is the information that you were consuming. So for us, we try to do it in two ways. One, when you mentioned this idea of science-based, is all our methodologies are properly based on actual science. So we use references of papers before research and so on. By the way, this is something that I brought at the beginning to the company, but we have grown that practice quite a lot, just to be sure that there are no opinions on the way that our methodologies are done, but we have always science-based that support the definitions of our methodologies. That being said, and thanks to the technology, something else that we provide to our customers is the capacity to customize those methodologies. So we tell them, look, this is what the industry says, this is what the state of the art has defined about how to measure this, what is the impact of that, or a specific experiments that they have done to understand something. But beyond that, if you have your own thesis and you want to change your methodology based on your own research, this is something that you can very easily and flexibly do thanks to our technology. The idea of unbiased is quite focused on using those humans, but scales those ones through algorithms. So we don't depend on just one single person, but we have several analysts working in parallel with the algorithms to ensure that they unbias themselves, because they kind of provide complementary views to ensure that we have enough consensus. And once we have done, that is used to train the models, to ensure that the models are going to be working according to the consensus of different experts on the topics. That way, the model is not going to be biased because one day had a bad day and decided that he was like influenced or whatever to decide if a company was better or worse, because the models are going to systematically learn from the process of this consensus of experts on the topic.
I just have one last question about AI, because you integrate social impact, environmental sustainability in your platform. How does it concretely work, and how do you ensure that it remains adapted to, again, the regulation that is refining years after years?
Well, regulation has been definitely a game changer, especially in the European Union, where this has started more powerful and is still landing. We see still a lot of changes, as you mentioned, on even the actual regulations that are adapting to try to get deeper and ensure that people have like good understanding of those. We started with the offer of the regulatory products more or less 2-3 years ago, when they started drafting the frameworks of these regulations. And there have been a couple of things that have helped us to be first to market and providing very good solutions. One, we started from scratch. So we had these experts on sustainability and industries working on a new product, brand new product that was based on nothing but what was best for the regulation. This has provided several competitive advantages about the accuracy. So ensuring that we were not reusing other products, but so if we wanted to, and I can give you some examples, exclude a specific business activity. So we were not reusing other business activities classifications that we had, but we created a specific taxonomy to ensure that we were capturing exactly that business activity. And second is the point about the technology. So for us, when there is a change in the regulation, and that means that we need to include new metrics, or we need to capture new information that we didn't capture before, or we need to adjust certain calculations, since everything is tech-driven, it's very easy for us to adapt to that. And that is, by the way, what has led us, as I mentioned, being first to market in SFDR, mandatory principal adverse indicators, in all the objectives of the European taxonomy, on launching the first product on biodiversity and nature based on the TCFD framework, and so on and so on. So that gives us a flexibility and an agility that is not so common, especially in other large organizations, that help us to be very adaptive to whatever the regulation might sense. And that helps us, by the way, to extend to other regulations. So as I said, the European Union is the one that has grown the most and has the largest impact. But this year we see something similar in the UK, in Singapore, in different places. The new regulations are growing. And what we want to do is to be sure that we can provide solutions to the people based on those geographies as well.
Okay, so if we focus now more on your clients, because you have different categories of clients that you serve. We mentioned banks, asset owners, asset managers, etc. So if we focus now on the financial sector, could you please explain to us, if we start by the bank, for instance, how you enable the banks to report on all the various sustainability frameworks and metrics, and particularly in the context of very specific regulations, such as I was mentioning CRR, Pillar 3, for instance, or any other kind of regulation. Can you please explain to us what would be the interest for these banks to get connected to you, and what will be their concrete impact?
Yeah, so there are 2-3 things that helps us to help these institutions, particularly the banks, based on what they need. Initially, what we see is interesting for them is incorporating ESG into their typical decision-making process. Mm-hmm. So as of now, they were doing above all analysis of the companies based on mainly financial dimensions and using credit ratings incorporating into their systems because they had their own risk analysis or not. So just to decide if a company might be eligible or not, depending on the amount of lends or things like that. So the first thing that we can help them is incorporating our solution to include ESG risk analysis above all, because it's their core topic into that process. How we can do it and what are the competitive advantages that help us doing that? One is, as I mentioned, the coverage. We cover more than 30,000 companies. When you incorporate inheritance, subsidiaries analysis, and estimates, we can extend that number to even 70,000 organizations where we mix both listed and private organizations. So that is something that is very helpful for them. But not only that, they also might be working with governments, fixed income, as well as with funds. So in those cases, our coverage is quite high as well. We cover more than 500,000 mutual funds. So that is very helpful for them to be sure that they have a solution that when they look for something, they're going to find some information there. So one is definitely coverage, as I said. Second is, fortunately, most of the regulatory frameworks are growing across the same type of metrics. So, for example, you mentioned Pillar 3, but in Pillar 3, they are using scope emissions metrics, carbon footprints, and so on. So those are metrics that are used as well in other frameworks that we cover. The risk framework, the climate analysis, and so on. So it's very simple for us to rephrase the framework and incorporate all these dimensions, adding the additional ones. So in this case, on Pillar 3, they request for several templates, 10 templates in total. Not all of them are mandatory by now, but it's very easy for us to adjust to these templates so we can create exactly the pieces that they need to do in that regulation in particular. And the third one, which is very convenient, and this is literally what our clients are benefiting from right now, is our capacity to adapt, even to use AI, for example, to collect information. So right now, what we see is that when we approach clients, they say, look, all this universe is very good. Most of my companies are here, but there might be companies that you do not cover now, how you can cover those companies. And that is where we leverage NLPs and other techniques to ensure that we capture that information very easily for them. Or in case that information is not listed, not publicly available, that is the case especially for private companies that are smaller, that information might be available for the investor, for the bank, so they already have that information, or they can connect us with the companies to ingest that information directly into Clarity. And that is something that we cover as well. Data management services, where either the bank or the company can incorporate the information there. Indeed, might be only for that player in particular. So that is not open to the rest of the clients, but only for that user in particular. So all in all, basically they see a solution that covers all the needs and problems that they have with the incorporation of the new regulation. They have the right coverage, is very easy to consume or even ingest into their workflows. And if something is missing, we are flexible and we provide a flexible solution to extend to the things that might be missing at that moment so they can incorporate it.
Okay, and you have a stress testing solution, correct, for the banks?
We have climate risk analysis for them, yes.
How is it concretely working? And is it used on a daily basis or is it once a year that the bank is stress testing on just the climate part of its portfolio, its investments, or how is it working concretely?
So we have this solution of climate and transition, physical and transition risk analysis that helps us understand how the revenues of the companies might be exposed to certain risks related to climate changes. By the way, we built this, and this is something that we do on anything where we identify a player that is very good in the market at one specific topic. We always partner to be sure that we provide to our clients the best solution. In this case, this is a solution that we provide in partnership with Ortec. And we provide this analysis where they can do real-time analysis of their portfolios, and we incorporate all the potential changes. So due to new changes in the environment or in the circumstances of the companies, that help them understand what is the risk exposure of the revenues of the companies that they are investing in, and consequently, they can understand how exposed their portfolios are.
There are some companies, AI companies, tech companies that are offering very specific analysis by type of climate risks, such as flooding, for instance. Isn't there a need, in your opinion, to have a very specific approach towards each of those risks?
So in this case, we incorporate that information from Ortec. And one thing that Ortec does very interestingly is that they try to apply comprehensive analysis that doesn't only take into consideration the physical risk. So traditionally, the climate risk models were very focused on physical assets implications. No, so if there was like a flooding or something like that, as you say, so there is the risk of the physical infrastructure and how the infrastructure is going to suffer. What Ortec provides complementarily is how the whole ecosystem and the comprehensive surroundings of that infrastructure might be affected, because this is going to affect the economy of the place, this is going to affect the labor workforce and things like that. So that's why we ended partnering with them, because that's not only provide this view, which is kind of quite narrow about the physical infrastructure, but beyond that, how the whole ecosystem might be changing due to the climate events, and based on that, doing a much broader analysis of the risk.
Okay. If we continue with the financial sector, what capabilities does your platform offer for SFDR or EU taxonomy, TCFD assessments that are mandatory now for many players?
Yeah, so maybe just to frame it in a way that is tangible. First thing, we provide portfolio analysis, so they can do the analysis not only of individual companies, but also the portfolios. And that simplifies quite a lot the process for them. Typically, they might be managing these portfolios even in a third-party platform. So we can connect through our APIs those platforms, and they can immediately see those portfolios into Clarity. And for the purpose of the SFDR or EU taxonomy or TCFD, as you mentioned, they incorporate this information into Clarity to identify how this is compliance or not, what are the potential outliers that they have in their portfolios, and they can do a what-if analysis, so basically optimizing their portfolio depending on what is their goal. No, mm-hmm. So if it is more about like high-level understanding, or if they want to create a specific product that might be Article 8 or Article 9, and so on. So all this kind of management can be done. But not only that, so beyond that, they have the option to manage and monitor the portfolio across time. Every time that there are changes, they might even configure to receive alerts, so they understand if there's something that goes beyond what they were expecting. And by the moment that they need to create the reports to justify how sustainable their products are, or justify if they are Article 8 or Article 9, so the right templates to comply with the regulator, they can create those reports automatically at product level and entity level in one simple click. So all the calculations are going to be incorporated there. And now even with the qualitative information as well. So thanks to the GenAI capabilities that I mentioned before, they have the option to incorporate even the qualitative text. So all in all, the compliance with the regulation with Clarity provides mainly two value. Mm-hmm. Very simple. So you don't need to dedicate an effort, because we need to remember that regulations are great to transform, but at the same time, it's something that the professionals have on top of their day-to-day. No? So they have additional work, and basically our intention is to simplify that, but doing it in the most accurate and, as you mentioned before, scientific-based way, so they can do it safely because they see exactly what is going on. Mm. Indeed, something that you asked me before that I believe we didn't cover, but I can cover very briefly, is like how clients can be safe about the transparency. Yes, so what is what we provide, so for them to be sure that they are making the right decision. Maybe I can mention some examples. Links to the reports. When the information is public, we include the link to where this information has been extracted from. Individual explanations. So, for example, if there's a violation because something appears in a piece of news, in a newspaper or wherever, about if the company is violating something, so you have the link to the new, an explanation of why that has happened. Full disclosure about the type of data point that you are using. So if it is reported or if it's estimated data point, and if it's estimated, what is the level of confidence. Full disclosure as well about what is the provider, what is the year of reference, when this data point has changed, and so on. All in all, basically coming back to my point about clarity, so the users need to feel that they have full clarity all the time.
Okay, very interesting. How were you able to build your team to first address a very complex market with high expectations and with a lot of players, and then maintaining your AI footprint as good as it was in the beginning, while, ensuring you fulfill also the expectations and objectives of your investors? Can you tell us a bit more about how you built the company and how you scaled it?
Yeah, as of now, we are more than 300 people in different places. So our offices are in New York, in London, in Paris, Barcelona, Madrid, Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh. So we have that footprint, but we have like individual people as well in different places, especially around Europe and the US, to be sure that we cover well those markets. There are maybe two dimensions that have been essential to build the excellent team that we have today. One is this idea of mission-driven tech company, because there are not so many. So we have been lucky enough to attract people coming from super top considered companies around the world, in finance, in technology, in AI in particular as well, because in many cases what they told us is like, of course. So I was coming from an excellent environment with amazing people, but something that I was lacking is this idea of purpose, of like what I'm doing, what is the goal of that? So it's more about selling more and just that, or there is something more. And definitely this idea of mission-driven company has let us attract very interesting profiles, because they really wanted to have an impact as we wanted when we started the company. So that is the essence. And the second one, which is a consequence of the first one, is the excellence calls excellence. No? So when you start creating that team with very top people, that attracts other people because they see a lot of interest in working in that environment with that type of people. So that is something that fortunately is positively growing as long as you grow the team. So I guess those two components have been the key ones in order to ensure that we have the best team.
Congrats. Okay, so
thank you.
So what are your next steps at Clarity AI?
Well, we have a very big challenge ahead, no? So we cannot stop. Maybe two, three ideas. As I mentioned before, we don't want to cover only the needs of financial institutions, but our actual mission is to provide this transformation across the board. So definitely with financial institutions, we are growing quite a lot, and we are able to do many transformations. We have just launched a couple of products on the e-commerce side. So we are working as well with several retail banks, with several e-commerces. We have a partnership with companies like Klarna to ensure that even with the new patterns of consumption, sustainability is there in the decision-making process, and definitely helping the corporates as well. So corporates are the ones that need to transform because they are the essence of the financial institutions, and we provide them a couple of solutions as well for them to transform. So that is clearly one, ensuring that we can grow our positive footprint across all the different industries and markets that need to incorporate sustainability to make decisions. And the second one is ensuring that we keep innovating thanks to the changes on the technology. As you mentioned before, we were pioneers in 2016 about using AI. So the first LLM models, we were using them already, but that time, partnering with companies like Meta and Microsoft and so on, ensuring that we were using all the new models that they had. And this is something that we want to keep doing, ensuring that we have the combination of two main things. On one side, definitely using the latest technology, but at the same time, leveraging all our know-how and expertise to ensure that we adapt that technology for the specific purpose and goal of Clarity, focus on sustainability specific.
To conclude, I always ask my guests to recommend a book or a podcast. So what would you recommend to us today?
Yeah, I wanted to recommend this book called Impact from Seth Cohen. So we have been working with him from the very beginning because we were really inspired on this idea that he, by the way, created about how we can include impact as a key dimension in the financial or in the economy in general. And this is a book that I keep recommending. So I recommend it like any of the things that he wrote before the book in particular, but now that he has concentrated all this knowledge in the book, I believe it's a masterpiece to see how we envision the economy, where not only like the pure economic dimensions are incorporated there, but this idea of impact, because it has economic implications in the future. So it's something that we really need to take into consideration.
Thank you very much, Ángel. See you soon.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all for listening and sharing this moment with us. Don't hesitate to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn to share your comments and reactions. You can also rate this episode on your favorite podcast platform. See you soon.